When my father died, everyone said the same thing. He was fair. He planned everything. He wouldn't hurt anyone. But when the will was read, I realized fairness depends on who gets to tell the story. And the truth about our inheritance was buried deeper than any document. My father was the kind of man people trusted with money. He believed in structure, planning, and order. He kept records for everything, filed documents neatly, and spoke often about doing things properly. Growing up, that made me feel secure. I assumed that when he was gone, nothing would be left to chance. I was wrong. When he fell ill, the family gathered more often, not out of closeness but concern mixed with curiosity. Everyone wanted to know how serious it was, how much time he had left, and quietly, what he had arranged. I stayed close. I handled hospital visits, medication schedules, and paperwork. I took notes when doctors spoke. I slept in waiting rooms. I didn't think of inheritance then. I thought of responsibility. Others came and went. Some relatives visited with food and sympathy. Others called frequently but never showed up. A few suddenly became very interested in my father's finances, asking casual questions disguised as concern. Did he ever update his documents? Does he still manage everything himself? Is there anything important we should know? I brushed it off. When he passed, the house filled quickly. Grief attracts people, so does the promise of property. At the funeral, people spoke about unity, about honoring his wishes, about family standing together. I believed them because I needed to. Weeks later, the conversation shifted. Someone mentioned the house. Another mentioned the savings. Someone else asked about business shares my father once invested in quietly. Conversations became strategic, polite but deliberate. The will reading was scheduled at a legal office. I expected clarity, finality, closure. Instead, I walked into confusion. The document was short, shockingly simple, assets listed broadly, distributions vague, names missing where I expected them, details glossed over with phrases like to be managed and to be shared accordingly. According to the document, I wasn't excluded, but I wasn't protected either. There was no clear executor, no percentages, no explanation. I felt my stomach drop. Questions filled the room, voices overlapped. Some people looked confused, others looked relieved, a few looked prepared. I noticed certain relatives weren't surprised at all. What followed wasn't loud, it was subtle. Meetings without me, phone calls that ended when I walked in, decisions being discussed that I heard about later. I asked questions and was told to be patient. Things like this take time. Let's not rush. We don't want conflict. Conflict arrived anyway. Documents started changing hands. Accounts were accessed. Properties were temporarily managed. Temporary became permanent quickly. One relative volunteered to handle things because they lived closer to certain assets. Another offered to oversee finances for transparency. Somehow, transparency always excluded me. I was advised not to worry, that my share was safe, that family wouldn't cheat family. I wanted to believe that. Then I noticed money moving without explanation, properties being rented without records, repairs approved without receipts, decisions justified vaguely. When I asked for statements, I was told I was being distrustful. You think we'd steal from you? You're making this difficult. Why can't you just let things settle? The pressure was emotional, not logical. They framed my questions as greed, as impatience, as disrespect. But what bothered me most wasn't the money. It was the silence, the lack of documentation, the way conversations shifted when I asked for clarity. I requested a copy of older documents my father had mentioned before he died, previous wills, account summaries, property records. No one seemed to know where they were. That didn't make sense. My father never operated without backups. So I started looking quietly. I searched through old emails, boxes in storage, files tucked behind unrelated documents. I contacted an old advisor who hesitated before speaking. Then he said something that changed everything. "Your father revised his plans more than once," he told me, and he was very specific. That sentence stayed with me. I eventually found a sealed folder inside an old cabinet that hadn't been opened in years. Inside were dated documents, notes in my father's handwriting, records of assets not mentioned in the recent will, and a draft, not legally finalized but detailed. It named beneficiaries clearly. It explained his reasoning. It showed intentional fairness. And it didn't match what was being enforced now. The realization was heavy. Someone had rushed the final process. Someone had controlled access. Someone had benefited from confusion. When I presented what I found, the reactions weren't shocked. They were defensive. "That document doesn't count." He changed his mind. "You're holding onto the past." But no one could explain why transparency was avoided, why records disappeared, why management roles were self-assigned. The truth unfolded slowly. Certain assets had already been sold, others mortgaged quietly. Money had moved into accounts that weren't disclosed, all under the excuse of family management. The betrayal wasn't dramatic, it was procedural. I sought legal advice quietly, carefully, without alerting anyone. The advice was simple and painful. Without a clear executor, whoever moves first often controls the narrative. That's when I understood. This wasn't about honoring my father. It was about opportunity. I confronted the situation calmly, requested audits, asked for timelines, insisted on formal documentation. Suddenly, I became the problem. They said I was dividing the family, that money had changed me, that I was disrespecting my father's memory. The irony was exhausting. I stayed firm. The process dragged, months turned into years, relationships dissolved, people who once spoke daily stopped calling, invitations stopped coming. But slowly, accountability forced things into the open. Some assets couldn't be explained, some transactions couldn't be justified, some stories didn't align. What remained wasn't justice, but truth. I didn't recover everything. Some losses were permanent, but I recovered something more important. Clarity. I learned that inheritance doesn't reveal character, it exposes it. That silence benefits the bold. That family loyalty often ends where money begins. And most importantly, I learned that fairness isn't automatic. It must be documented, defended, demanded. Because when someone says, "Your father would have wanted this," what they often mean is, "This works in my favor."